Chapter 2 of Tractate Shekalim further discusses laws of the half-shekel tax that was mandated by the Talmud of the temple in order to pay for the upkeep of the temple in Jerusalem. The Mishnah says you're allowed to exchange all of the Shekalim for a higher currency, darkanais, just so that's less coins and all and everything's easier to carry. In addition to the collection chests set up in the temple, there were also collection chests set up in the Jewish communities of all of the other provinces. If the Shekalim coins are sent via messengers and were then stolen or lost, if by the temple the coins had been withdrawn from the Terumas Halishka procedure, which will be explained in a minute, then the coins en route at this point are considered to have the same status as those at the temple, and those in charge of it must swear a lack of negligence to the temple treasurers. If the coins were lost or stolen before this period, they need to swear it to the townspeople, who then need to replace the missing coins. If the missing Shekalim are found, those and the replacement Shekalim are considered Shekalim donated to the temple, and the extra amounts don't count for the next year. The Gemara says we can convert the Shekalim to that other coin, but not to pearls in case their value declines. It also says that the collection boxes mentioned were for new Shekalim. For old, outdated Shekalim donations, there was only a collection box in the temple. There's also disagreement if the discussion where the coins are lost or stolen is if it's with an unpaid watchman or a paid watchman, but the coins were stolen by armed bandits or they were lost in a shipwreck. The remaining points are discussed. This goes further, and it says that if the original batch of coins are found, there's debate as to which is considered the first or second batch of Shekalim, either those sent by the townspeople or those that reached the temple treasurers first. The first batch go for the current year, and the second batch goes for old funds. New Mishnah. If somebody gave another person a shekel so he can go and fulfill his obligation on his behalf, but the guy uses the shekel for himself instead, if this was after the teruma with these coins had been withdrawn, the person is guilty of me'ilah, using temple property for personal benefit. If you contribute your shekel from funds that were consecrated to the temple, and then the teruma is withdrawn from the coins he donated and used to purchase an animal offering, he has also committed me'ilah, using temple property for personal benefit. If you paid your shekel with ma'aser sheni tithe funds, or with shavi'is tithe funds, you have to eat food of a corresponding value, which will be explained. The Gemara qualifies these points and says that the point on eating food of a corresponding value after using ma'aser sheni tithes for your shekel obligation, what this means is that you should take a coin and say that the ma'aser sheni funds should be deconsecrated and should instead go to this coin, and then the ma'aser sheni can just act as a shekel for the tax. New Mishnah. You cannot donate more than the obligated half-shekel tax, as the verse says, the rich man shall not add. If someone is saving up coins and says that they will be his half-shekel donation, but when the time comes he finds that he has too much, Beis Shammai says the excess is used for voluntary communal offerings, while Beis Hillel says they're just totally not consecrated. If the coins were specified that he'd be taking the shekel from them, both opinions agree that the excess is not consecrated. A similar topic, if someone saves up coins to purchase a chatas offering, the excess is agreed to be used for a voluntary communal offering. If the coins are designated that you'll pay for the chatas offering from them, it's agreed that the excess is not consecrated. The difference between these and Shekalim is that these, unlike Shekalim, don't have a set limit. Others disagree, saying that the shekel tax actually also doesn't have a set limit, as people would just give the basic unit of currency, which was sometimes more than the half shekel. So it's that the difference is by the shekel tax, there is a limit that everyone gives the same amount, unlike by the chatas offering, where it could be different amounts. The Gemara qualifies the circumstance of these cases, along with some related similar ones. New Mishnah. The surplus of money set aside for the Shekalim obligation is not consecrated. The surplus money set aside for the 10th of the ephah of the flour offering for the bird pairs of the zavim, zavais, or woman who gave birth, this extra money is used for the chatas and asham offerings. By all of these, the surplus is put in a chest in the temple for voluntary communal offerings. Generally, an offering which is brought for sin or guilt, the surplus is put in this chest. The surplus from the Ola offering is used for Ola offerings. The surplus from the Mincha offering is used for Mincha offerings, and the surplus for the Shlamim and Passover offerings are used for Shlamim offerings. The surplus money used for poor Nazirs is used for poor Nazirs. The surplus of a private Nazir, who set aside money for his sacrifices and had leftovers, is put in the voluntary communal offerings chest. The Gemara says that if somebody takes his shekel and then dies before it's given to the treasury, it's put in the voluntary communal offering chest. There are related surplus laws by the temple discussed. This goes on a bit further. New Mishnah. The surplus for the funds of the redemption of captives can be used to redeem other captives. The surplus of the funds to redeem a specific captive is given to that captive. The surplus funds for the poor are given to other poor people. The surplus for a specific poor person is given to that individual. Surplus from the funds for the burial of the dead are used for other dead people. If the funds were for the burial of a specific dead person, it's debated. Some said it should be given to his heirs. Some said it should be just held in stasis until Mashiach comes. Some say they should be used to build a monument on his grave. The Gemara says that if money is collected to bury somebody, and then you find out that he had money to bury himself, the money is given to his heirs. This is debated along with other points. It also discusses two sages who would argue about topics and how they became upset with one another for some listed reasons. It also expounds on a related point. It says that there's no generation without mockers, and describes how even by King David, people would mock him, asking when the temple would be built, even though they knew it would only be built after his passing. But King David wasn't upset, as he knew that his son would build the temple and bring many offerings, but God still preferred his charity and deeds more than any offering, which is based on the verse. And that's the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3 of Tractate Shekalim further discusses the laws of the half-shekel tax on the Jewish people during the times of the temple. The Mishnah says that the coins were all deposited in a chamber in the temple, and portions were withdrawn at specific times during the year to purchase the communal offerings. Coins were withdrawn 3 times, 15 days before the holiday of Passover, 15 days before the holiday of Shavuos, and 15 days before the holiday of Sukkot. Some say these are also the dates of the separation of the animal ma'aser tithes, while others say that that's done on the 29th of Adar, the 1st of Sivan, and the 29th of Av. Others say that that's done on the 1st of Nisan, the 1st of Sivan, and on the 29th of Elul. Not the 1st of Tishrei, as that's the holiday of Rosh Hashanah where you can't tithe animals. The Gemara qualifies the meanings of these dates. The times for the animal tithes is either that's when domestic animals give birth, so that animals will be plentiful by the festival pilgrimages, or so that you won't delay bringing an offering as it's right before the holidays. These points are further discussed. New Mishnah. The Shekalim coins were withdrawn from the temple treasury with 3 boxes of 3 a measurement of volume, about 4.5 gallons each. Some say the boxes were marked with the first 3 Hebrew letters, Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. Others say it was with Greek letters, Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. The people withdrawing the coins were not allowed to wear any clothes that could, in theory, conceal coins, like a hemmed garment, a shoe, or sandal, tefillin, or an amulet, so that if he becomes poor, people don't say that it's because he sinned and stole from the treasury, and if he becomes rich after, people don't say it's because he stole from the treasury. This is because, based on a verse, the same way you shouldn't sin before God, you shouldn't even appear to sin before a person. The Gemara discusses some similar points in measurement by a number of other topics, including carrying diluted wine on Shabbos, the fact that it's valid to drink all 4 cups of wine on Passover at once, and similar points on that obligation that you can use spiced wine or diluted wine as long as it looks and tastes like wine, and others. There are other measurements discussed, like the precise finger breadth measurement of the Revi'is measurement and other similar points. New Mishnah. The household of Rabban Gamliel wanted their coins to be used for the communal sacrifice purchase, so they would wait until the day of the withdrawal of the coins, put their coins in the treasury before the withdrawer, who would then put them into his box. It also goes through the exact procedure of withdrawing. The withdrawer would ask before he did so, would be told he could, and in between withdrawals he would cover the remaining coins with a leather cloth, so that way he wouldn't accidentally take coins from funds he had already taken from. The first withdrawal was on behalf of the people of Israel, the second for its surrounding cities, and the third for Babylon, Media, and everywhere else. The Gemara further discusses this process and says teachings on the importance of diligence, which brings to purity, which brings to holiness, which brings to humility, which brings to fear of sin, which brings to piety, which brings to divine inspiration, which brings to the resurrection of the dead, which brings to the coming of Elijah the prophet, and the coming of Mashiach. It brings sources for this. It also says that somebody who lives in Israel should speak the holy language of Hebrew, eat his produce while pure, and he should pray with the Shema prayer in the morning and evening, and if he does that, he's worthy of the world to come. And that's the end of chapter 3.